Since making his cinematic debut with 2004's Dawn of the Dead, director Zack Snyders' film career has seen him bring numerous comic book adaptations to the screen, such as Frank Miller's 300, Alan Moore's Watchmen, and his own trilogy of DC movies such as Man of Steel, Batman v Superman, and Justice League. While many of these movies were successful at the box office, mainstream critics tend to dismiss Snyder's work as being mere style over substance. Sucker Punch, an original movie of his own not based on any other property, was a critical and commercial bomb. But like a lot of his movies, it's gained a cult following over the years. Many of Snyder's movies have received extended director's cuts on home media, which have proven to be very popular with its extremely dedicated fan base. Both Watchmen and Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice in particular have undergone extreme critical re-evaluation after new cuts were released. This was nothing compared to his director's cut of Justice League, however, the original cut of which was butchered by Warner Brothers. The film underwent massive reshoots under director Joss Whedon after Snyder exited the project, resulting in an absolute mess of a film. After years of Snyder's passionate fan base campaigning to have his cut of the film released, something that was deemed impossible by many commentators given the high cost involved, the studio relented, with Snyder's preferred 4-hour cut being released in 2021 to high critical acclaim. In the years since, Snyder has found a home at Netflix, directing the zombie film Army of the Dead, and now his ambitious 2-part space epic, Rebel Moon. Hey everyone, I'm Brendan Kelleher. Rebel Moon, based on an original idea Snyder has had for over 2 decades, was originally pitched as a Star Wars project after that franchise was sold to Disney in 2012, but was rejected. Set in a distant galaxy ruled by the Motherworld and its military, the Imperium Authority, the peaceful moon of Velt is threatened when the Authority demands that they give them their food stores when they return in 9 days. When a squad of Authority soldiers are killed by Cora, a former Imperium officer, she sets off on a quest to recruit a team of warriors to fight for the freedom of Velt. So as pretty much everyone knows by now, the storyline of this film is inspired by lots of different sources. Not only the original Star Wars, but Akira Kurosawa's The Hidden Fortress, classic westerns like The Magnificent Seven, and quite blatantly, that film's own unofficial sci-fi remake, Battle Beyond the Stars. Snyder has been quite open about his inspirations for this film though, and has said in several interviews that instead of trying to disguise this fact, he leaned into it with this movie. Let's face it though, Star Wars didn't invent science fiction and fantasy, and was itself inspired by many different sources, most notably the likes of Arthurian legend, the aforementioned Akira Kurosawa, and the Flash Gordon serials of the 1930s. What made the original Star Wars great is that Lucas took all these elements, threw them in a blender so to speak, and created something which became more popular and influential than he could have ever imagined. Sofia Boutella plays Cora, the main heroine of the story. I've seen some people compare her to Rey in the Star Wars sequel trilogy, in that she's this badass warrior, standing up against the evil Empire. I have to disagree though. Cora is a veteran soldier, and unlike Rey, we're informed of her backstory pretty quickly. Yeah, she's tough, and is able to beat up enemies very well, but her background is that she's been trained since a child to fight, so it's not as unbelievable as Rey when she's able to clear out a cantina of bad guys. I just wish they'd shown her fighting as many women as men. The Imperium Authority seems to be made up almost entirely of men. White men, by the way. Where's the diversity? Diversity is our strength. Despite all the cliches, Boutella is quite likeable in this role. She's done a lot of this physical acting in lots of other movies, so this is second nature to her. She was one of the best things about Star Trek Beyond. Charlie Hunnam's character is for all intents and purposes the Han Solo of this story. Our heroes even meet him in an alien cantina for God's sake. There's even a bit where some thug gives the male hero Gunnar a hard time before Cora dispatches him, just like Obi-Wan Kenobi does in Star Wars. Mind you, Luke Skywalker never had some male pig-faced alien grab him by the balls in the cantina scene in Star Wars, so it's not entirely a rip-off. As for Hunnam, like Harrison Ford in Star Wars, he has some of the funniest lines and moments in the film, although there is more to him than meets the eye. For some reason, Hunnam gives his character Cal a Northern Irish accent, which is an interesting choice, given what we find out about him later in the film. As for Jaimon Hunsu, who plays Titus, he seems to be playing literally the exact same character he played in Gladiator 24 years ago. They even pick him up on some kind of gladiator arena planet in the film. Probably the most intriguing character for me is Nemesis, played by Duna Bay, as this kind of samurai Jedi Knight type character. She even wields a pair of swords that are not unlike lightsabers. We're introduced to her very briefly just before she fights some giant spider creature. I feel this part of the film is the most obvious evidence that this film is not Snyder's true director's cut. There is so much backstory that is hinted at with this character and her people that we never get to see. I noticed earlier in the film that one of the Imperium characters used a similar weapon that implies a possible rivalry between two groups, just like the Jedi and Sith in Star Wars. Interestingly, it seems that it's the bad guys in this universe that use blue-colored laser swords, as opposed to the good character that uses red ones. I really do hope that this is elaborated on in Part 2, and the director's cut in particular. As for the action and VFX in this movie, it's fine, I guess. If you've seen a Snyder movie before, you know what to expect. Lots and lots of slow-mo. Sometimes even slow-mo within slow-mo. There's really nothing here that I've not seen done better in Snyder's other movies. I do think that sometimes when Snyder's reined in, or he suppresses his natural tendencies, we get better action sequences from him. There is distinct lack of slow-mo during his action sequences in Man of Steel and Batman v Superman, for example. Those movies contain the single best Superman and Batman action scenes ever put on film, in my opinion. The warehouse fight in BVS, for example. As impressive as that was, though, it would have been ruined if Snyder had used excessive slow-mo, as he does here in Rebel Moon. The character of Korra is a trained fighter, so it's understandable that she can handle herself in a fight. But still, it's kind of unbelievable that she can dominate all these massive soldiers. It's just the latest example of this ridiculous Hollywood trend of having women beating up men 2 to 3 times their size. I just wish these filmmakers would realise that it's okay to have their lead character fail, and even get beat up once in a while. To make another Star Wars comparison, Luke gets beat up quite a bit in A New Hope. It just makes it all the more enjoyable when he does learn and become victorious by the end. What I did like about the film is that it intrigues me enough that I want to know more about this universe and its characters. It's obvious that this version of the movie, like a lot of Snyder's work, is a severely compromised vision, and one which I hope will be improved upon in the director's cut. I think that Jimmy, the robot voiced by Anthony Hopkins, is easily the best character in the film. But a crucial mistake is that he doesn't join the heroes on the quest, and he has far too little screen time. To make a comparison with Battle Beyond the Stars, the movie that Rebel Moon owes its biggest debt to, main character Shad's relationship with its robot pilot is actually quite endearing, and better written than anything in Rebel Moon. Overall, the biggest problem with Rebel Moon is that it's part 1 of a 2-part story. It only needed to be 1. There simply isn't enough plot here to justify a 2-parter. Battle Beyond the Stars did this story in 1 movie, and in less screen time than Rebel Moon Part 1. They introduced us to a team of warriors that we actually got to know and care about by the time the final battle in that movie happened. Rebel Moon Part 1 is just a 2-hour-long recruiting mission, with very little plot progression, and I feel everything that occurred in this movie could have been accomplished in less than an hour's screen time. The director's cut is said to be at least 3 hours long, which will more than likely improve things like a lot of Snyder's work. Or it might actually make the movie worse. Who knows? I'm just hoping that Snyder takes some of the criticism he's received for this movie on board in preparing his new cut, and whatever cuts we're getting for part 2 of this story. As it stands, I didn't hate this movie, but as of right now, it's my least favourite Zack Snyder movie. Even Sucker Punch, which I previously would have said was his least effective film, had more cohesion than this. I blame Netflix for this really. I understand that there's a time limit in films for the theatrical market, but on streaming, Snyder really should have been allowed to present his full director's cut up front. They're obviously doing this to get more views and subscribers, because they know how rabid Snyder's fans are. But that's really no excuse. So would I recommend you watch this movie? No. I'd say wait for the Snyder cuts that are coming, and in the meantime, go watch Battle Beyond the Stars instead. It's fun, it's shorter, and it's got a spaceship with tits on it. What more do you want? Thanks for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, then please give it a like. Consider subscribing if you haven't done so already. Share it with your friends. Click the bell for notifications. And let me know in the comments, have you seen Rebel Moon Part 1? What did you think of it? Most importantly, I hope you all look after yourselves, and I'll see you all in my next video. Bye for now.